Why do we like to be scared?
I think you can think of theater in general, cinema in general, as a place where human beings like to go to sit in the dark and be confronted with anxieties, whether it's a horror film or a terror film or an action film, that these anxieties can be resolved. So you sit in the dark, you have your popcorn, you identify with the protagonist. The bad guy usually loses unless it's a European film. And then you get to go home with that sense of resolution. So you might want to think of it, especially horror films, as a sort of mass therapy.
Here's Johnny!
When I talk about horror, generally I'm talking about haunting films, mostly taking place in a domestic space like a house. Usually the family has moved from the city to the country and they're so happy and it's a sunny day and you know, right? You know, oh, they're dead, or at least some of them are dead. They move into the house, something's wrong with the house. Often, as in one of the films I'm writing about, The Conjuring, they don't know they have a basement.
Who's ever down there? I'm gonna lock you in now.
And I have to tell you one little anecdote.
Okay.
I was teaching Psycho in the library, and I believe it was in the early 90s. We had a projector, and I was showing Psycho, and a young man was sitting in front of me, and he did not know the ending, and he fell out of his seat. He fell onto the floor, and part of the reason I went into film studies was I thought, at last, after German, I'm going to have lots of texts in common with my students, so I'm going to have a lot in common. And yet he had never seen Psycho, and I don't know why he hadn't. Anyway, but he fell, so that was kind of a good point for me. It was a moment where I felt like I'd done my job. The classics are classics in part because they really deal with our identity and our anxiety about ourselves, especially sexuality. So Dracula films are always about bodily fluids. So depending on when it's made, a Dracula film might be about AIDS. A Dracula film might be about STDs. It might be about pregnancy. Nosferatu is very, very much about post-World War I Germany and masculine identity and a new democracy and a sense of who are we? What does it mean to be German? What does it mean to be a killer? Nosferatu is a killer, right? And they've just experienced World War I, where there was a lot of that killing going on.